C.I. Shirley Medium. So I just caught another D report yesterday, and so I want to read this D report and record it and give you an update of everything that's going on. So this D report is centered around my books. And so what happened was that I was called to property Wednesday to pick up a book that one of our fellow activists ordered for me. I'm not sure who ordered it because I wasn't able to see the name on the receipt. But someone ordered me a book, and so they called me up to property Wednesday morning to pick the book up. When I went to pick the book up, Lieutenant Kung, who's new to property, gave me my inventory sheet. So they keep in the IMS a list of like every single book I've ever owned, I guess. Even books that I don't have anymore, they still have on that list. And so every time I've gone up there over the last like month or so, they give me this book list telling me to check off books that I no longer have. And, what books I have, what books are in storage, and what books I no longer have. Now, I've done this list for them about 5 times already. And so when I went to pick up the book that they called me up there for, Lieutenant Cone gave me that list again. And so I told them, listen, I've already done this for you guys 5 times. Why are you not taking the books out of the IMS? I'm telling you what books I don't have anymore. Why aren't you changing them in your computer system? And so his thing was because I was supposed to get back to him on the rules about legal books. Now, the conversation that I've been having with Lieutenant Kung about legal books is that he's telling me the rules of the DOC in regards to property is that we can only have 10 books. Now, the rule as I know it is that we're allowed to have 10 books in our cell at one time, right? So his position is that we're only allowed to have 10 books, period. And so we had this conversation in the past, and so I was supposed to go and research the policy and get back to him on that particular language. So when I looked at the property policy, I realized that at some point the property policy must have been changed because it says we can only have 10 books, period, right? So the language of having 10 books in our cell has been removed somewhere. And so I don't know if that language still exists in a policy statement or a standing order or some type of supplement to the actual regulation. But I couldn't find it in there. So Wednesday we had that discussion. And so what I was explaining to him Wednesday was that in the 24 years that I've been incarcerated, in every prison that I've been in, the property department has always seen legal books or law books as part of our legal work. And so we keep our law books in legal storage. And so anytime we keep law books, transcripts, case files, we keep all that stuff in legal storage so that we won't have too much paperwork in ourselves. So law books are part of our legal storage. And so we're always able to make a legal storage request and go there to grab our legal books or case files or transcripts, whatever we need to do the work that we're doing at that time. So that's never been counted as our personal books because the rule is that we can have 10 personal books. So law books and educational material, like when you go to Boston University or you take a correspondence course, those books have never been counted as our 10 personal books. From what I understand of the rules in the past, at least, is that educational books can be in excess of the 10 personal books, but when you finish the educational program, you had to get rid of the excess books. So that's how it's always been. So here, he's trying to tell me that he wants me to reduce my law books as well. And so I told him that I order law books because I learn law. I study law. And the reason that we order legal books is because we have to work on our cases to try to get free. And we have to learn how to fight against oppression and, things like that. And so we learn how to file civil suits in the courts. So we buy law books to do that. So according to him, he's saying he's never heard of a law book, right? So when I looked at the list, I said, okay, well, this says, right, Massachusetts Rules of Court. That's a law book. You have one that says Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of Law. That's a law book, right? So he says it doesn't matter if it's a law book or any other type of book. I can only have 10 books, period. right? And so I need to like get rid of some of my law books. And so we had a discussion about that. So I also told him that the rule was never just 10 books, period. It was always just 10 books in our cell. So I told him it's ridiculous that I'm doing a life bid, right? Now, lifers are allowed to have long-term storage. So I'm doing a life sentence. I told him it's ridiculous, right, that I would only be able to own, out of the billions of books that exist in the world, I would only be able to own 10 books for the rest of my life, right? Don't you think that's kind of ridiculous? Don't you think that's, no? And so, so that was part of the conversation we had, right? And I disagree with the policy, right? So I voiced my disagreement with the rules and regulation, which I have a constitutional right to do. I don't have to agree with a political ideology or a rule. I can voice a disagreement. So in disagreeing, you know, his position is just that, you know, I have to reduce my books. So the book that one of our fellow comrades ordered for me, I told him to keep that book, right? So he can keep that book, right? And that's what it was. So I was leaving, and I told him, see, the problem is they don't want us to read, right? So this is just contemporary, like, you know, oppression, where it's like you don't want, you know, niggas learning how to read, right? Because we get too educated and we can fight you back. Told him, so you don't want us to sit there and read, right? And so I told him, so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to organize the biggest protest this prison has ever seen. And when you have me in the hole and you're telling me, you know, Coleman, you know, why'd you do that? Why are all them people outside and why are so many people, you know, protesting? I'm going to say it's because, you know, you wanted to mess with my books, right? You don't want us to read. And so, so he decided he'll write me a ticket for that. And so that's pretty much the general story. And the reason I told you that story is because I want you to compare that story to the language of the ticket. And so I'm going to read you the ticket so you can see for yourself. Yeah. So I'm charged with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 charges that they gave me because of a conversation. And this wasn't a loud conversation. It wasn't a disrespectful conversation. It was, you know, an intelligent conversation, that the same way I'm having a conversation with you now. It was an intelligent conversation. And, you know, what they don't like is when we are educated and we can speak to them particularly and, you know, make our points. And so it wasn't a loud, disrespectful conversation. So here are the charges. So I'm charged with category 3, number 2, receipt or possession of any contraband of items not authorized for retention by inmates. Now, mind you, he called me up there to receive a book. So that book is not contraband. I wasn't receiving contraband. Next charge is 304, threatening another with bodily harm or with any offense against another person, their property, or their family. So apparently I threatened somebody and their family. Number 305, refusing a direct order by any staff member. Number 326, use of obscene, abusive, or insolent language or gesture. Number 327, conduct which disrupts the normal operation of the facility or unit. Number 401, receipt or possession of contraband, duplicative of the first one. Number 411, violating any department rule or regulation or any other rule, regulation, or condition of an institution or community-based program. So those are the charges. Now, here is the description of the offenses. So this is the language of the ticket that Lieutenant Kong actually wrote. On Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, at approximately 8:20 a.m., inmate Waylon Coleman, W65484, violated department rules and regulations by making verbal threats of group demonstration. Inmate Coleman was called to property department to receive his book coming from Mel. I, Property Lieutenant Kong, informed inmate Coleman that he is required to remove over the limit books from his active list in order to receive the incoming book. Inmate Coleman has approximately 25 active books on his IMS list. Inmate Coleman claimed some of the books are legal books and are excluded from allowed books. Inmate Coleman was explained that in accordance with 103 CMR, he got the CMR wrong because he wrote 103 CMR 103. There's no such thing. Inmates may possess a maximum of 10 books, magazines, and newspapers. Inmate Coleman stated, "I'm a lifer. It's ridiculous for me to have 10 books. You will have the biggest demonstration coming your way. I guarantee it. You'll beg me to put all these books on." I don't even know what that means, but continuing. Inmate Coleman left the property without issue. This incident was witnessed by the property staff and inmate works. All proper authority was notified. That's the end of the D report. So the reporting staff is Philip H. Kong. He's a property lieutenant, and his name is Kong. The supervisor is John S. Sugrue, spelled Sugrue. The shift commander is Brian R. Germain, Germain, and the disciplinary officer is Randy A. Comeau, Comeau. So that's the ticket. And so the problem with the language of this ticket is, if you notice, there's no threat in that ticket. In the language of that ticket, there's no direct order that I was given that I refused. There was no obscene language that he laid out in that ticket. And there was no conduct which disrupt the normal operation. See, the normal operation is, if there's conduct that disrupts the normal operation, then that warrants a call for a freeze-up. So a freeze-up is when they have an emergency response call. A person gets into a fight and, they press the button. So, that disrupts the facility because now they got to lock everything down. So that's what disruption of the facility or normal operation is. Obviously, I wasn't receiving contraband because he called me up for it. So that's how these tickets work, and the whole idea is because we have an opinion. And so essentially this ticket is designed to try to punish me for, one, having an opinion, and two, disagreeing with department regulations. And so this is going to be my next fight. And yeah, I'm going to keep everybody updated to how this goes. But this ticket is all about books. I'm not walking around doing drugs, selling drugs. I'm not getting into fights. I'm not stabbing people. I'm not making weapons. I'm not loud. I don't hang out in crowds. I read books. And so this attempted whipping is, I guess to reduce my amount of books that I read. And the interesting thing is, his attack right now is on my legal books. And I think the issue is essentially that I'm becoming too good at fighting them. And so now the only thing they can really try to take from me is law books. Let's stop him from learning law. Let's stop him from filing these grievances and lawsuits. Let's take his law books. And it's interesting that the lieutenant had actually told me that I don't need to buy law books, right? Because they provide us everything that we need for law in the law library. Now, we have no access to the law library. You have to actually put in a letter to try to get on a waiting list to even have access to the law library. And then once you get to the law library, you only get an hour. So you might wait a week or two.
No third-party calls are allowed.
You might wait a week or two just to get to the law library.
No third-party calls are allowed.
Only to be there for an hour. See, that operator who just came in means they're starting to record the call, or they're listening in. So that's what that means. So they just did that twice. And so they're listening in, so you can say hello if you like. But that's it. That's essentially it. I wanted to give you that update. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this because I want to start discussing the relationship between the prison regulations that exist today and the Black Code that was designed in 1865 when the plantation slavery was abolished. Because right now, I like making that connection because only incarcerated people can be punished for certain things that nobody else in free society can be punished for. And that's the very idea of the Black Code. When it came to the disenfranchisement of blacks after the abolition of plantation slavery, the Black Codes were designed to keep black people inferior and to maintain, as Michelle Alexander would say, an undercaste. So the whole idea was to disenfranchise. the black codes
You have 1 minute left.
The black codes were designed to put black people in the prison system where the 13th Amendment allowed slavery to continue. And so upon a conviction, a person could still be enslaved. And so they created these rules that only black people can be convicted of. And so when you look at the fact that only a particular group of people can be punished for a particular thing, then we can fast forward that today and still show the consistency in where only a certain group of people can be punished for things such as doing laundry or reading too many books. Only an incarcerated person can be punished for those things. So I'm going to start talking to you about making that connection between the black codes and the current CMRs of the Massachusetts Rules and Regulations. So that's just some thoughts for now, and I'm just giving you an update. I am in the struggle, your comrade, Waylon X. Coleman.